So now we take this section down. We're going to remove all the hair except for the last section. So as I come through here, I would lift this section up, working with only small amounts of hair at a time. And I'm going to pull this section too low. Okay, so this is far too low, but I'd like to show you what happens if you work too low. When I go too low, can you see a step has appeared in my haircut? Do you see the step has appeared? This is because my mechanic, my elevation, which is the control I have of the hair moving up, was positioned too low. So let's say you've done that too low. You then reassess it and lift it slightly, and it's only a few millimeters that needs to come away. It's not a lot of hair. So don't feel you have to take off tons and tons of hair. You don't. Remain consistent. If you take too much of a guide, if I took all this section here as a guide, I could have a guideline here, I could have a guideline here, 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 I can have multiple guidelines. So taking away a lot of the hair and only having a small amount or two sections in your hand at once really helps you to understand the correct position of your guideline. Whatever you do consistently will be consistent. Sounds simple, it is. So then I pull my section. Now here, if you over direct it, don't. That'll go too short. If you over direct it here, it goes too long. It has to come flat back to the wall behind you. Beautiful. So you can see it's traveling longer towards the front. It is a beautiful shape when it's finished. I was very excited to do this for you today. So I'm going to continue working all these sections in the same fashion I have been. I'm going to maintain only keeping two sections in my hand at once. So as I come through here, I repeat the same process. I repeat all the process. And we get the same result. Beautiful. So what you'll start to see is my shape is working very much rounded here and goes flatter into the nape. Very simple, basic shape, something I hope you can use with your existing clients. I hope some of you are able to go back to work. I hope some of you already are. I have a lot of friends in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and I know a lot of them are back to work in some form. In England, we are not able to go back to work until the 4th of July at the earliest. So we are all making sure we're being responsible. As hard as it is, we're all making sure that we help our government, our country to defeat the coronavirus. Isn't this great? Isn't it simple? It's simple but not easy. The knowledge of the haircut is only one building block of being able to complete this. The second and final building block is technique. If you haven't got the dexterity in your hands, if you haven't built technique, every haircut seems difficult. When you watch someone work and you think, God, that looks so easy, that is such a simple, it looks so simple what he's doing. That could be because the technique in the individual is quite strong. Later, I can go through the difference in my scissor grip. So maybe Emma could just make a note of that, or if any questions are coming through about that. I'm happy at the end of the haircut to do a very brief, maybe 2-minute tutorial on the way you hold your scissors to enable you not causing any damage to your wrist or your hand. So you can see everything's being pretty consistent. If there was a very strong crown here, I may leave the final 2 sections without being cut until it was dry to assess the effect of the crown area, because we don't want to take the hair too short and have an issue when the hair is dry due to the fact that the hair growth pattern has become too dominant. Okay. So again, whatever gets repeated gets rewarded, okay? Keep everything consistent. Turn this a bit more. I had the pleasure, or the honor really, of being in Abu Dhabi in Dubai earlier this year. And I think I had 14 days teaching out there. I taught main salon and pastoral salon in Dubai. And I spent quite a few days with my dear friend Tara Rose from the Tara Rose Salon, absolutely amazing group of people. And I was able to work on stage for Emma Pro Beauty. And although I ran horribly behind for time, I always aim to do a full cut and blow dry on stage. So you don't see me just texturize the hair. You do see me do a full haircut, something you would do on the salon floor. And my model had beautiful hair. It was Indian hair, beautiful hair. Very, very thick, very, very curly. And I did like an undercut on her on stage. It was fantastic. I was really enjoying it. So I was so grateful to Emma, because obviously not being a well-known stylist, like myself, I'm not a well-known name. I was very grateful for the opportunity. So then we just need to cross-check this, working vertical. There we go, guys, yeah? So you can see I'm not hiding anything from you. I want you to really enjoy this. Oh, so neat, lovely. Okay. That's the back done. How good? How easy? How easy is that? Now we're going to come to the slightly more difficult part, the sides. So I want you to remist all the back and get it all out of the way, okay? Then we're going to release the clip from the side, and we're going to remist the side. Equal moisture, equal tension, equal shape. It's very important that you do keep the level of moisture the same. Our section is going to run horizontal, straight across. So when you section, sometimes it's quite cool just to comb under, twist your comb, twist, 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 and get the hair out of the way. Just means get faster. You don't have to keep moving your hands. Okay. So what we're going to do here now is to cut a line in. So we will go through, totally ignoring this for the moment, okay? Don't want you to worry about this. All the outline will be done when it's dry. What we're going to do here is give you some tips on how to cut around the ear. If you notice, the root area has less moisture than the ends. So we can't have that. We have to go back through and remist the hair. You put your scissors in the hair first. Your comb will come over the scissor. The reason for this is the comb underneath enables you to pick up all of the hair and keep it in the comb. But I'd like to discuss how you hold your comb. If your comb is coming straight down like this, we have more control and more tension. Let me show you. If I'm like this, I can move the hair side to side, I can lift the hair up and down, I can keep the comb in the hair. If my comb just goes like this, it doesn't really give me any control. So if you want more tension, cleaner sections, you come down. But when you come to cut, your comb must come back to the horizontal as it will release the tension, enabling you to make your line sit much more to the natural fall. So now we're going to come down to here. We're going to tap above the ear, tap below the ear, and we never cut the very first bit first. So you'd never cut this section first because it can jump and move. You would always go back through afterwards. Tap above the ear, tap below the ear. And there you go. It sits a lot neater if you follow those rules. 1, equal moisture. Make sure the root area has the same level of moisture as the ends. 2, use the scissor to hold the hair in the comb. 3, understand the position of your comb. More tension, less tension. Gather all the hair with the stronger grip. Release the grip prior to cutting. 4, tap above the ear, tap below the ear. That releases the tension. 5, do not cut the first section at the edge. Work internal, regroup the hair, and go again. They're your 5 key lessons of basic cutting to keep a perfect line that will sit freehand. I take section 2. Section 2 is going to come right down to section 1. So look, already, do we have number 1? No, we don't. Number 1 hasn't been done. We need to remist the hair. It's got a little, there we go, pull that out. Pivot point have given me a little braid there. So 1, yes. 2, yes. We've got the hair all in. 3, comb coming down first, like this. Come to here. 4, tap, tap. 5. And if I can add a 6 in here, come slightly back when you cut. So when you are cutting, go slightly backwards. It helps to achieve a very sharp, neat line. So as we come back through, tap, tap, tap. As we come back through, I always work this way because the hairline is thinner. So this area needs to be a tiny bit longer than the rest. Otherwise it jumps up, and when you come to refine, this is almost traveling towards the eye. You want it to travel towards the lips. So we just need to remist those root areas. As you come through. Beautiful. And the final section. If the hair was very, very curly, I'd probably work without the comb. I'd groom the hair down and cut it without the comb in. Now, what we need to do now is put our graduation in. So we need to revisit our back section. We're now going to take the section roughly just below half up, like this. Can everyone see that? So the section now has combined the side into the back. We're going to lift the section. Let me just explain this a bit more. The idea here, guys, is to graduate the side. At the moment, the side is simply a one-length haircut. So we're going to lift the first section directly off its base, like so. We're going to cut the hair that is sitting above, which means when you comb that down, you are starting to form graduation. As we come through to the back, we take our section square out. We take a guideline from the back, a guideline from the front, and we remove any excess. Simple enough, guys? Now we can take section 2. Where do you think section 2 is going to go? Where do you think my guideline is going to come from? That's right. My guideline is going to come from the previous section. We don't want to take all that hair. Remember what I said about the guideline? We don't want too much guideline. Does it come through? And you see my guideline from the back is here. And you blend it through. So this is really making it more square. It's making my graduation sit horizontally. We want there to be a corner behind the ear. I'm going to be actually doing a lot of refining to accentuate my corners. It's going to be a lot of fun, actually. I can talk to you about the right scissors to use. I can talk to you about the combs I use, people I follow that I get a lot of education from. Absolutely. Anything you guys want, we can go through. If Emma's okay with it, and this time at the end, I can do a mini tutorial on how to hold your scissors. It's called the Eastern Grip. I'm happy to talk you through that. So easy, but I'd say it's so simple, but it's not easy, I meant to say. It's simple, but not easy. You need to build your technique. You need to practice very often. Build your technique, and you'll find it easy. So we're going to groom all this hair out the way. We're going to start this side exactly the same way. Now, step 1. What was step 1? Water spray. Step 1, water spray. What was step 2? Scissors. Okay, step 3, comb. We're going to comb down to there. Step 4, tap, tap. And step 5, don't cut the ends straight away, work the middle. Okay. Lovely. So we are simply repeating the process I've just demonstrated to you in exactly the same way. We're doing all the subsequent sections the same. Remember, what's step now, guys? What's the first step? The roots are dry, they've been tied up. The roots are the closest part to the scalp, which is the hottest part of the hair. Maintain and understand all those little pieces, and they all help. All these little things all help. And when you come to refine at the end, you'll have less to do. And that is the important part. If you're cutting off a lot of hair when you refine, I would potentially suggest that the technique or the choice of shape probably wasn't correct. And I've had that happen to myself many times where I've done a haircut and I've refined it and had to almost reshape it. And I've learned from that. So do not think that's a negative. It's a negative. If the hair was very, very fine here, you may want to use the wide part of your comb because you don't need as much control. The hair's going to sit quite flat. And you probably don't want to pull the hair and stretch it too much. It's probably very, very pliable for that reason. If the hair's very thick, I'd probably use the fine side of my comb. The hair on my doll's head is not very thick. It's probably medium to fine. It's quite easy hair to cut. When I work on the salon floor, I spend 45 minutes to 60 minutes per appointment. Obviously, this haircut is an education haircut. Thereby, I'm much slower because I want to explain all the processes to you. When I will find a guest, whatever we call them nowadays, I take 45 minutes to 60 minutes on my client. I don't do any color. I'm very, very poor at application of color, very, very bad at it. Very slow at it. But I love to cut hair and style hair. Okay, so very simple, yeah? We're getting there, we're getting there. Now I'm going to take a section just from the back. Remember, we worked roughly a third up. And we took the first section as our guide, put our first section directly off its own base, brought the section above it down, and removed the small amount of hair that sat off it. This is starting to create a graduated shape opposed to the one length, very, very flat look we just created. As I pull the section straight out from the back, you will notice I have another from the back, which is this section here. This ensures our graduation is building square, hence the name square graduation. When would you use this haircut on the salon floor? Well, I would suggest it's unrealistic to think you will get a client ask for this. I would suggest that this is about you developing understanding and technique. And these are things that when you do a haircut like this in its strongest possible way, you learn the mechanics, you learn the technique, and that means it helps you to become more innovative approach your client because you have a lot more clarity and understanding with the principles and mechanics of a fundamental shape. For example, if I was doing a short haircut and my client wants to keep length nape, I would know how to do it based on this haircut. If I had a client that wanted a more box shape, I would know how to do it based on this haircut. Don't look at the haircut, look at the way we cut the hair and look at how and where would you use that. Because imagine how many different people are to each one of them and their clients. You can't. What I do is I show you a classic haircut and I explain all the building blocks of it. And I help break down and understand the why and the how that haircut or that shape worked. This will enable you to use the principles in that haircut in a variety of ways. What I found is it added value to the current shapes I was able to do with ease. Some of the haircuts I knew I could do really, really well. I thought, I could add that section pattern. I use a delta section instead of a horseshoe section because it follows the contours of the head. That makes sense to me. So I don't want to show you a haircut. I want to show you how to cut hair. Very simple, yes, so far? So we need to do our cross-checking again. Yeah. Beautiful. So you've seen me do the back of this haircut. You've seen me do the crown. You've seen me do the sides. I'm going to do section. What do you think I'm going to do there? That's right. One of the things I find when I do teach a lot of salons, mostly in the UK, is they only have one water spray between the feet. I would say each side has their own water spray. You don't have a water spray, they don't have to cost any big money. As long as you have one, that's the main thing. I'm excited to show you this next part. What I would now do, starting from the crown, I want to take the section and take a small amount of the section that was above and bring in the hair that is underneath. So you see, by doing that section, I'm able to have a strong amount of my guideline, but I'm also able to connect in the top to the underneath. So as I pull this section, so what happens the lower you go? If I was to lift this lower, if I was to move this section lower, what do you think would happen? Would it be heavier? Would it be softer? Would it be more layered? That's right, it would be heavier. The lower you lift this section, the heavier it is. When would you need to do that? What if there's a very, very difficult crown area? You may need to compensate for the crown with a lower elevation. Because we're using a mannequin head today, and it's a very high quality one, I only work with pivot point. It's got no real difficulties. Now, when you get to the very, very front, like here, do not lift up. I want you to pull this down and just connect it into the shape at the sides. The front zone, moving out of the apex into the front, the hair has no guideline underneath it for the side. So we're going to be pulling it over and connecting it in. If you brought it up and out, as you pulled it down, it would probably fall shorter than you wanted to. So yeah, write those questions down, guys. Let me know where you're from as well when you write down the questions. Be interesting to me to know. Into the section. Nice and sharp. When you don't apply too much tension, that's when your shape will fall very neat. If your tension is too high, the hair will pull back. So again, when I got to the very last spot here, you'll notice I never cut to my guideline. Instead, I'm going to bring this down, tap on the hairline, and cut it. Because there's no, if you look here, like look at this, right? There's this recession on the hairline, these holes here. Well, there's no guideline for that piece of hair as it comes down. So we have to compensate. We have to make sure that we don't, if you just pull those out, as they fell, they'd fall higher than the length. So I just keep taking this section. We're going up to a side parting. So I'm imagining that my client is wearing a side parting which is here. So this part now would be the end of the haircut for this side until I get the hair dry. So we're going to lift it. You see how this is straight off base. The guideline, I'm using the section underneath, is lifted directly off its own base. Beautiful. Very, very, very exciting. So now we come to this side. Need to lift it higher than that. And when we refine the hair, we will get all the pieces at the front all together. We'll separate the final section in two. Lift the section. Make sure we don't have too much hair. Not masses coming off. Final section. And then I'm going to wrap dry the hair, give you a brief tutorial on how to wrap dry. Just a brief one, because obviously we don't want to spend forever on that. I'm going to be applying a little bit of product to the hair. Lovely. We're done. Okay. So with hair product, the thicker, more gloopy it is, the more protein-based it is. The more watery the product, the more moisture-based it is. I'm just going to begin with a leave-in conditioner, which is more about moisture. Okay. So this particular product I'm using is a very water-based product, so it's going on first. My second product is a much thicker product. It's more of an oil. So I will put this on after. If you load up first with the thicker product, the more watery product can't get through to the hair. So make sure you load up, layer up with your products. Don't start first with the thickest product. That's also a good bit of advice for you to give your clients. Exciting. So I'm going to be blow drying, nozzle on. I'm going to be working with maximum heat, medium speed. I'm using 7-row vest brush, not a 9. Normally I'd use a 9. The hair's a little shorter. So if there's any questions, Emma, maybe whilst I'm blow drying, I could answer a few questions.
Yes, there are, Ben. We're just losing you a little bit. I know you're back. It might be my internet connection.
Sorry? I can hear you, beautiful.
We just lost you there, but you're back. Okay, okay, so question. Is it possible, so at the start of your cut, you were focusing on thinner sections. Why are we focusing on it being thinner rather than thicker at the start?
Sure. When we work vertical, if the section is thin, we only get control of the shape going from the top to the bottom. If your section's thick, you start to have an impact on the shape going side to side. Because as you're pulling all that hair to a point, the hair will be longer than the other. So you won't have as much control. You will find an inconsistency when you cross-check. When I cross-checked my work, every time it was neat, and that isn't any ability, it's down to the fact that the technique works. So the finer the section, the more control you have over what you're doing. If you take a big section and pull it all into one, the hair from the side to side is moving. Also, I'm doing a lot of diagonal sections. So the fact that they're fine helps me to have full control over where the weight's being directed. The thicker the section, in my opinion, the less control you have.
Cool. I hope that was clear for Mary. If not, please elaborate.
Thanks, Mary.
Before you started cutting, you had your model divided into sections. The hair was pinned into sections. How many sections do you divide the hair into?
Varies for each thing I'm doing. It changes all the time. This particular haircut, my sections are determined by the zones of the hair. There are 3 key zones. You have the crown, which works from the crown directly down to the corner of your hairline. That's not behind the ear. That's a bone called the mastoid process, and it is the corner of your hairline. So it's much further back than the ear. This is where the hair is at its thickest. The hair is 8 times more thicker at the back than anywhere else. Then when we move from that area into the apex, which is the highest part of the head, the apex runs from the recession of the hairline to the mastoid process. Now, essentially, the hair now is getting less. There's less hair due to the ear. And then when you get to the front zone, there's even less hair. So my sections are really about helping me to equalize the effects of this density shift. This is me taking into consideration the fact that the hair is not equal everywhere, but I want that to look equal everywhere. So when I sectioned the top first in a delta section, that enabled me to control the hair, how it fell around the recession. My next 2 zones were the sides and above the occipital bone. They were about controlling how I built the weight, working up to the apex zone. Then my underneath section, which was below the occipital bone, was about deciding where the weight line would sit. Not about the quantity of weight, but the position of the weight line. So my sections are a mapping process. If you own a business, you may do a cash flow forecast. This is you helping to understand what problems may come up and how to deal with them before they happen. Very similar to how I map a haircut. I map the haircut, looking at the hair growth patterns, looking at the zones of the hair, and making my decisions based on that. So it's difficult to give you a number of sections because it would change for every client I did. But the mapping process is a vital process of any haircut you do.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to carry on drying? I'll come back to you.
Sorry, yeah, I was getting into it.
Can you still hear me above the hairdryer?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
What was the brand of scissors you were using?
Just lost you, Emma.
What was the brand of scissors you were using?
The brush I'm using is a Vess brush. That's VESS. It's a Japanese brand, but they're available worldwide anywhere. Pretty much most education houses sell them. I tend to buy them from either M&P Education or Hairbrained. And I use unbranded. This is a Sassoon one. The orange ones are from Sassoon. My scissors are Mitsutani. I use Mitsutani scissors. I'm currently using a retro offset. And my comb is a Sesame, in the special edition, the Mitsutani one is orange.
Fab. We have a question from, I don't know whether it's somebody in the UK, but it's definitely someone who's not yet managed to get to their, or have clients that haven't yet managed to get to the hairdressers. In this situation, how would we cut our hair by ourselves?
I've no idea. I would never advise anyone to do it.
I thought that's what you
I would always refuse point blank. Yeah, I just refuse to ever advise anyone how to cut their own hair. Because I just think that is, I just would never do it. I just think, yes, it's not ideal, but there's no hairdressers getting their hair cut either. you can't really cut your own hair. I don't cut my own hair, you know, and I'm a hairdresser. So if I don't cut my hair and I'm a qualified hairdresser, I would advise anyone else to do it.
Yes, good answer. Can I get the same perfect haircut? Your hair is super curly.
Great question. So I work with curl a lot. I've done quite a few curly workshops just recently. And it's down to your mechanics. You need to understand the 5 mechanics of cutting hair: elevation, distribution, over direction, tension, and body position. So these are things that we teach. These are things that help you understand how you control the shape as it builds, regardless of the hair texture. Everything's different. Everyone's hair is different. There is no definitive straight hair out there, because everyone's going to have different level of movement. Everyone's going to have different hairlines, different crowns. Curly hair, for me, I cut wet. I don't do it dry. I keep everything equal, high tension. And what I tend to do is I vary the mechanics I use to cut the hair. So like my elevation tends to be lower at the bottom, but higher at the top, which is the reverse of when I cut straight hair. So I've done some curly tutorials, and to be fair, I use a doll's head to practice called Amber from Pivot Point. It's an Afro-Caribbean head, and I would say that how do I get it perfect is make sure all my mechanics are consistent. My level of moisture, my elevation, my tension, my over direction, my body position, all have to be the same and balanced. And if I maintain that level of balance in my work, I maintain that level of balance in the end result. There's no trick to cutting curly hair, is what I say to people. There's no trick. I mean, there are a lot of people that say I use the curly method, right? And it's amazing. And I've been training the curly method, and it works. But it works unless they dry their hair straight. So, although I can cut Afro hair, I never had Afro clients. I would love to have them. I'd love to do them, but I never really had them. So, it was a case of I tend to learn more on the mannequin heads. And what I found is there is no trick, if that makes sense. I was talking today about how you'd vary this haircut, how you'd vary it based on if the hair was thick, if the hair was Indian, let's say. I used to have a lot of Indian clients where the hair was very thick, had a lot of movement, and I would vary. And that's what I try is unlearning the haircut and learn how to cut hair. And that's why you need to learn the mechanics of haircutting, I think.
Amazing. Oh, you're back. Then. I will leave you to continue drying, and we'll see you at the end.
Yeah, I'll get cracking.
Someone has just asked what brand of hairdryer you're using. It's a Dyson.
Yeah, it's a Dyson, this one, yeah. Very expensive. Yeah, it's a very expensive hairdryer. It's quite quiet. It's not particularly lightweight. I got given this. I was working on a photo shoot with a Dyson ambassador, and it gave me a hairdryer. So I don't know, if I'm honest, if I would have paid £300 for it. It is a nice bit of kit. There's no way of denying it. It is. I don't know if it was that good on the salon floor. So I do a lot of short hair. It works really well. But if I had to do like a really big curly blow dry, you just can't beat the Parlux hairdryer, I suppose. So once I've wrapped the root area with my vest, I start to use a small barrel YS part brush. This contains a lot of ball bristles. The bristles are very tightly compact. This enables me to get a lot of tension, a lot of shine on the hair. As I move through, I want to help really get the ends straight and smooth so I can assess my work when it's dry. The vest brush doesn't really help me do that, but the vest brush helps me to get the root areas under control. So now when I come to the side, see that shape sitting quite nice now. You can see the silhouette of your shape. So maybe that's a good way for you to assess your work. Obviously, let's say you're in lockdown and you've got a doll's head. If anybody wants advice on where to purchase doll's heads, please do ask me. If anyone wants advice on where to get tripods and things, please do ask me. You know, I'm more than happy to help. As I said, the only thing I wasn't going to advise on was how to cut your own hair. I just think that there's no chance, really. Like I say, I see hairdressers not cutting their own hair. So I think, well, I don't want to advise someone if they do it wrong. And the salons in England open on the 4th of July now, so we don't have that long to wait, I suppose. I've actually had to do my wife's colour while I've been off. I don't colour hair. I used to colour hair a lot, but I don't. I had to do like a full head of back-to-back baby lights, and it took me hours, absolute hours to do it. But she liked it, so that was something. You see how I'm wrapping the hair, working right to left, working left to right, and when I get the roots done, there are some inconsistencies on the end of the hair. And then I get my round brush. And to be fair, you can start to see how neat the line is. And you watch me do the haircut start to finish, so, you know, up to this point. And you know, like we haven't done any trickery or anything. That's what I try to want to show you, is that I have no more ability than anybody else. I just practice a lot. So I built my technique to a certain level. That's what you need to do, is develop your technique. Certain things I've done on my social media haven't always been about the end result. It's just been about developing technique. So that's sitting quite nice. So the haircut hasn't been refined yet. We've got to refine it. We've also got to run the irons over the hair a little bit. The thing I find straight lines do for me on a haircut like this is they give the hair a nice polish. They just give it a really smooth, a real nice smoothness to it. I don't necessarily work with one brand exclusively in terms of hair product. The only brand I work exclusively with is Mitsutani. I only use Mitsutani scissors. I am a UK ambassador for Mitsutani, so obviously I do only use theirs, but I'm more than happy to. They're brilliant scissors. So hair product wise, I tend to use a bit from everything. I love Kevin Murphy. I do use a bit of that, but I don't necessarily ever recommend products to anybody when I teach. I just say there's a type of product you might want to use. Like when you refine, you want a very light spray, very, very light aerosol spray, just to help control all the little flyaway bits of hair. A good wrap dry, to be honest with you, can take me about 15 minutes or so. But it is a vital part of finishing, because when you finish, not only is it a presentation to your students or to your client, but it's a way of, you're about to recut the hair. Like, I haven't cut my outline really. You see, the brush is shaped like it's like a semicircle. So I run across the head, basically wrapping the hair flat to the contours of the head. This is helping me to get equal bend on the roots, which makes the hair sit down straight, because you're getting bending one way, then the other, then one way, then the other. And this helps you to really get the roots under some control. A lot of educators use mousse at this point. I prefer not to. I do like to use an oil or a moisture-based product. If you've got a very difficult hairline, dry it slower, move your brush further away, your hair dry further away, and brush slower. So that's quite nice. You can see my lines sitting sharp, which is good. You also, like me then when I'm blow drying it, I'm making little assessments of my work, double checking it.
One quick come through, if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Can you explain a triangle versus horseshoe on the top of the head shape?
What's that? Sorry, explain the difference between using a horseshoe and a delta.
No, could you explain a triangle versus horseshoe on the top of the head shape.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, Matt, I just missed that.
It's probably been my signal. Could you explain the difference between triangle versus horseshoe on
The
top
triangle,
of the head shape?
the delta section. So the triangle is called a delta section, and it is used because as it follows the contours of the head. So remember, the width of the head is widest at the temple and then widest at the occipital bone, but these are not horizontally joined. So when you look at the occipital bone is here, yeah, but the temple is here. So they are not joined horizontally, but the horseshoe only works horizontally. So part of the horseshoe section goes above the round and part of it is below. The delta stays totally above the round of the head. So this really helps you to create a shape, I suppose, that is very conscientious of the head shape. So that is a delta section, and it is mostly used as its advantages are, it works parallel to the width of the head. So now I'm just going through with just a pair of GHDs. Not loads of work to do, just going through quite fine sections and just flattening any movement out that I can see, and also just giving the hair a nice polish. When I refine, which I can never wait to be finished with the blow dry, because I can't wait to show you what the refining does, how much the haircut changes. I suppose it's like if you're drying someone's hair and it's very, very thick and you just can't wait to remove some of the weight with texturizing for them. You almost feel, oh my God, I just hope they don't judge the haircut without me taking the weight out. I remember that very, very well on the sample. I used to work a lot with disconnection in my long layers on clients. I used to do a heck of a lot of disconnection. Disconnection is a term used to describe where two sections of hair are not knitted together with a guideline. Disconnection is not a bad thing. It's totally acceptable. It breaks down to two areas. You have practical disconnection, which is where you don't see the disconnection. It's purely there to solve a problem. And you have visual disconnection, which obviously you do see. A fringe is visual disconnection as an example. But you could have things like I did a mullet at the weekend. That was obviously not a sound floor haircut, and that was visual disconnection. Sitting really well, really nice. You see, I love it when it's been straightening, you cross check, it's really, really sharp. Your finish is vital. You know, when I train people and they haven't taken the time to finish it off, it means we've got to go back over it. So if you're teaching somebody, I always try to emphasize the importance of this. You've got to spend that time on wrapping it. You've got to spend that time on getting the roots done. And what's nice is my line here, I don't really have to do anything to it. It's sitting very, very sharp. The difficulty I have when I teach is people often start to ask me questions like, well, what client would have this haircut? You missed the point. That isn't what I'm showing you. I'm showing you a classic haircut in its strongest possible form to help you build understanding of the mechanics of hairdressing and hair cutting, I should say. So sometimes it isn't really about showing you one haircut that I've created that is a really salon wearable haircut, because I created that and that was my journey. So I can show you that and you can just do the same haircut again and again, or I can teach you the mechanics of how and why I thought that up. How did I know to solve that problem in that way? And that is generally my goal of education, is to help you be more in control of the way you cut hair with the knowledge you have. On a personal note, I'm very excited at the moment because the football comes back on. The football comes back on in the UK. So I am, oh my God, I'm so excited. That's it. Lovely, isn't it? Look at that. No texturizing. Okay. So that isn't because the person who's cutting the hair for you is good. Far from that. It's just down to the haircut works. The way you do this, if you can practice this and practice it and practice it, and you go over and over and over and you keep getting better and better, you'll be surprised how much that affects the salon floor. I became obsessed with learning the 9 classic Sassoon haircuts. 3 line, 3 layer, 3 graduation, or square, circle, triangle. And, you know, I spent about 6 years practicing just those haircuts. And that has helped me teach on 5 continents, teach in over 30 countries, write my own book that's sold in 52 countries, develop an online education platform that is in 55 countries, 55 countries now, sorry. And you know, that all came from just practice, just, you know, like it became a routine. And when you have a very, if you are trying to start up your own education, you want any advice, I would say start with you as your first customer. Start with you, because you're going to sit behind that laptop and it's going to have a blank screen, right? And you don't know where to start. Start with you first. Everything I've created started with a blank screen. Excuse me. Start with a blank screen. So you've got to realize that, you know, if you start with you first, you can't read minds, okay? You can't read the minds of other salons or other people. What you can do is to know what you love. And if you can cater to all the courses, everything I teach was for me. And then the people who like what I like or follow, you know, the pure simplicity of fundamental haircutting, they will hire me based on that. But if you are too diverse, or you're trying to please everybody, you'll never please anybody. You know, it's got to be you first. Would you pay for you? I mean, that's sitting nice, that is lovely. Would you pay for you to cut your hair? Would you pay your price for you to cut your hair? I would pay my price for me to cut my hair. That's the first thing you've got to start with. Because if I was ever training someone and I asked that question, I said, would you pay you to cut your hair? And if it said no, I would say that is the problem. That is the root of all your problems. Would I buy my book? Yes. Would I do it? Yes, I would, because I wrote it for me. You know, I wanted to translate all the theory I've learned into something that was a handbook for the salon floor, a handbook for the salon owner, a handbook for that young stylist or that returning stylist, anyone who just wants to master the fundamental aspects of technical haircutting. You know, that's what my education was about. We call it perfect small. That's what we say. We come in, what's me, there's only me that does it, and we'll help you to perfect small. That's what I'm about. We say becoming is better than being. It's always better to be striving to achieve something than it is to think you've already achieved it. Right, we're ready for love here. This looks glorious. I'm really happy with this. Just going to get a different pair of scissors now. So I'm going to be using another pair of Mitsutani, obviously, but a much finer blade, finer tipped blade, I should say. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just using a very light hairspray. It's really a texturizer, but I use this because it doesn't make the hair sticky, but it helps me to get all the little flyaway bits down. So when I start to come and texturize, well, I'm not going to texturize anything, but when I come to start to develop my style and refine it, just suddenly flood my little studio with Kevin Murphy. Cool, right, here we go, exciting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little clip just to keep the hair out of the way, okay, just so it sits at a natural form. Is everyone excited for this? I'm really excited for this. So we're going to start at the back, okay. Now, we are going to create a corner from this section here. And that is going to come round into here, okay? So that's the objective, is we're going to blend through. Just check my section there. That's better. You see that? There's a really slight cut mark there, kind of that. So we are going to start directly in the middle. Pivot point are quite good to have a little logo in the middle. So we're going to start using the tip of my scissor, okay? So I'm just going to stop now and explain what I'm doing. I'm using the very tip of my scissor. You also get you guys closer to the action here. Okay. I'm just going to put the light on. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the very, very tip of my scissor. Now this is because it's going to help me to create a curved line. So as I go through, isn't that beautiful? Then we put the head into more of a neutral position. There we go. So what that's giving me right now is a nice, strong corner. To be fair, the sides are actually sitting quite nice. They don't need a lot to be done, to be fair. I'm quite lucky on that one. The graduation had a couple of cut marks, but nothing major. Check your line in 3 ways. So I'm checking it now underneath. Then I'm going to check it from above. So I lower the doll's head down slightly and I check above it and I can see a couple of little bits that aren't sitting quite right. And then you will check your work from a distance. So you would then check this through a mirror or from a distance. Okay, so I would use the mirror. I would turn the client in the chair slightly and use the mirror. But you see that's sitting quite nice. Okay, now as we come through here, we're going to start our refining process just to strengthen the areas around the ear. The chipping technique, all these little triangles, they also help to collapse the line. So they are really, really useful. So you see where I over-directed the front, I made the hair be too long, but I think that would be an absolutely fine consequence. If the hair is too long, I can spend maybe, what was that, 6 seconds and just going over it. Okay, how's that sitting? That's sitting pretty neat, to be fair. Yeah, that's got it. How's it looking, Emma? Any questions?
No, we're all good. We're eager to see the final look. Oh, what's the name of your book then? Someone's asked.
It's called the BB Bible. It's available on iBooks and Amazon Kindle. It's only available in 3 languages: Portuguese, Spanish, and English. I am looking to get it translated. So if there's any translators out there, contact me and I'm happy to pay for your services to help me translate my book. I'd love to get into Arabic. I'd love to get into Persian. So if there's any translators out there, please do contact me. Yeah, I was amazed how much the book sold, really. I really was. The hardback sold the most. I don't have any hardback copies left. They've all sold out. But they literally sell like crazy, the hardback copy. So then we use a pair of trimmers. This is a little technique, really. Do not use these to make the line. I really don't like that. I don't think it works at all well to force a line with the machine. It's better to just go through at the end. And I'm flattening my line. That makes a really quite a large difference. Looks, let's have a little look. Yeah, it's looking good. Very neat. So as we come round, release this section. Obviously, that was the hardest side, which is why I did it first. That was because it was on the side part. Now, you're going to use this section here as a guide. The very length, the very, very front there as a guide. And we're just going to have to take off a little bit of length of around the ear. Oh, picked up the wrong scissors. I have about 6 different pairs of scissors. I have some that are great for long hair, where they're full convex. The pair I'm using here, I find these are brilliant for the refining process, but they're not great for anything other than short hair because they're a flat blade and they've got no convex in the blade. Yeah, the BB Bible. I was really nervous to call it something like that, but yeah, it's done well. Hopefully, I'm coming back to Abu Dhabi to deliver a course. I mean, obviously, I'd love to say later this year, but we just don't know really how things are going to be. So, you know, as soon as I can, I'll definitely be back. It's a shame, really. I was supposed to be in Singapore this year. In about 2 weeks' time, I was supposed to be in Singapore teaching, and Taiwan. Obviously, I've not been able to do that. I was supposed to be in Texas and Copenhagen. So, yeah, it was. You know what? Like, don't get me wrong. I know there are bigger problems in the world, so it's not, you know, like a big thing. But I think I was just so excited to do it. There we go. That's really getting nice now. Just double checking everything. I don't think there's any harm in checking your work over loads and loads of times. Just don't cut hair for the sake of it, I suppose. That's one of the biggest things, because sometimes when I'm teaching somebody, I think that haircut looks lovely, they're finished, but they go over and over and over it. And, you know, you have to sometimes intervene and just say, trust me, the haircut was great. Relax, you've done a brilliant job. I think the standard of work from the people I trained in the GCC was phenomenal. At Pastels, at Maine, and again at Tar Rose, very, very strong. I even like the heat, believe it or not. But the funny thing was that when I was last there, it was February. And obviously February is relatively cool in the GCC. But to an Englishman, a pale Englishman, it's still red hot. And we had people on the course who were sat there in like a jacket, and I was still red hot. I was like, we need to keep the aircon on at all times. I'm absolutely roasting. Okay, we're very nearly done now, guys, and then we can go back to some Q&A. How are we looking, Emma?
That looks amazing. We've gone well over time.
I love it. I can suddenly hear Emma come back in again. Then it's
You're not talking to yourself.
No.
Right. There aren't any further questions, but before we wrap up, if anyone has any last minute questions, then feel free to put them in the chat.
Once I'm gone, guys.
They're great. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm happy with this. I'll post it and tag Pro Beauty and Pro Beauty India.
Yeah.
And everybody in. And Emma, if there's anyone that missed off, if you want to tag them in on a comment, I will be really. I mean, that's sitting quite nice. I'm just going to have a little look at the very, very front. Let's move a light a bit closer. So just mess it up at the end and then comb it back down to natural 4 and just make sure that nothing comes off. If you're doing a client, I definitely recommend you do this just to make sure that there is no issue. You see on this side, there was a couple of bits that wasn't quite right, which I've got rid of now. Okay. Okay, Emma, how are we doing?
Incredible. Thank you. Stunning.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say, sorry?
Thank you so much for your time, as always.
Pleasure. Absolutely, at any time. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who's taken part today. Thank you to Pro Beauty for having me. Thank you to Emma, as always, babe. Really appreciate your time. Big love, stay safe. And if you have any questions or anything, drop me a message.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ben. Great to see you. And we do hope to see you in Dubai and Abu Dhabi very, very soon. Thank you everyone for joining. Ben will be sending over a picture or popping it on Instagram. Take a look at later on so you can see the final look up close and personal. So yeah, this leaves me to say have a great rest of your day, everybody, and thank you so much for joining.